Welcome to Fight News Now Extra. It's John Pollock with all of today's news coming your way, and as always, we will chat with John Ramdian and Robin Black. Today we'll discuss a pair of new fights added to the UFC's November return to Sao Paulo, Brazil, and the promotion is working on a big rematch in the heavyweight division. It was reported by Ariel Helwani that UFC officials are attempting to put together a rematch between Antonio Silva and Mark Hunt for UFC 193 in Melbourne, Australia. The two met in a memorable fight to close out 2013, fighting to a 5-round draw. The aftermath saw Silva fail his post-fight drug test for elevated levels of testosterone and was suspended for the next 9 months. Silva is coming off a win over Soa Palele, while Hunt was soundly defeated by Stipe Miocic in his last fight. The UFC's return to Sao Paulo, Brazil in November will see light heavyweights Glover Teixeira and Patrick Cummins square off in the co-feature on the card. Teixeira recently snapped a 2-fight losing streak with a win over Oven St. Preux in Nashville, while Cummins is coming off a win over Rafael Feijão earlier this month in Brazil. And the UFC has also announced a lightweight bout for the same November 7th card in Brazil, as Abel Trujillo will meet veteran Gleison Tibau. Interestingly enough, both men are coming off losses to Tony Ferguson, and for Tibau, this will be his 25th UFC fight since beginning with the organization in 2006. This Sunday night, we are live at 6 p.m. Eastern Time with a live preview show getting you set for all of the action coming your way from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and then keep it locked on Fight Network because at 7 Eastern, we have 4 of the prelim fights coming your way here on the network, including Sam Stout taking on Frankie Perez. Here with John Ramdian and Robin Black, who are bound for Saskatoon, Saskatchewan later this week. We'll chat about that card, but first of all, the UFC now discussing a possible rematch between Antonio Bigfoot Silva and Mark Hunt. They had, of course, that very memorable fight in December of 2013, ended in a draw, and then Antonio Silva ended up drawing up a tainted drug test afterwards.
You said taint.
With elevated levels of testosterone. Fan of this direction for both men?
Well, yes, as long as the fight plays out the way we all anticipate that it plays out all of it in our minds. If the second fight is anything like the first fight, I think most fans will want to see this fight. But I'm a big fan of seeing fresh matches, and if they can find interesting fights for Mark Hunt and Antonio Silva, let those fights happen, because these guys aren't spring chickens. Let the fresh fights happen. If that can't happen, then have the rematch.
The word on Mark Hunt is he's a little lighter, he's a little fitter, his diet is healthy, he's as good as he's ever been, maybe better. Vegan, which is going to make him a little bit lighter on his feet, very skilled guy. The word on Bigfoot is that after they've removed him off the testosterone replacement therapy, that among the very few who actually probably need it as a guy who was born with the challenges he was born, is that he's maybe not quite as performing at as high a level as he used to be, and Mark Hunt is performing higher. So Mark Hunt loves this fight, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but I think we all have those visions of that last fight that Mark Hunt had with Stipe Miocic, though. Yeah. And I mean, Mark Hunt took an amount of damage that was an incredible amount.
And Verdum. As well as that, and Junior Dos Santos. Mark Hunt has taken some beatings in the UFC.
But you know, among the people who do that, and they're like, oh, next time will be different, you know, this guy has made changes. He's made changes to his philosophical approach, his diet, the way he trains. That's what you have to do. You can't go there and go, well, I'm now in the business of either dishing one out or getting one really bad, because your life starts to go backwards. The men and the women who make huge changes after setbacks, those are the ones to keep an eye on. Mark Hunt's going to look good.
As well, we have a number of fights added to the card in November in Brazil, including Abel Trujillo taking on Gleison Tibau. This will be his 25th fight in the UFC. I think Reebok needs their own Gleison Tibau tier. This guy, he loves the Reebok deal.
Of course he does.
Which maybe in a nutshell explains why there's a lot of fighters out there who are just livid at the fact that if let's throw out a Miesha Tate, for instance, and she's technically making less than Gleison Tibau, for instance. I mean, that kind of does put everything into perspective of a Gleison Tibau who, let's be honest, he's a journeyman lightweight that's always...
Put his time in. That's what it comes down to, and I think right now...
Is that what...
that's what it is.
That's what the Reebok deal should be, though? Just
no,
like getting a watch at the end of your days?
I think from the fighter's perspective, when it was like, well, we'll go with rankings. First of all, what are rankings? Yeah. Who are these people? You know, some guy from MMA, I'm a brilliant MMA guy.com is saying that X, Y, that's a long one. X, Y, and Z is in the rankings. And, you know, somebody else is looking going, I beat that guy. Who are these tomato cans making these rankings? They didn't like that. fighters will look and go, well, you know, Joe Lozon has had a lot of great fights. He deserves it more than some young guy who's in MMA X, Y, and Z, whatever.com's rankings. So the rankings are nonsense, and this at least is better than that.
Yeah, it's always going to be a work in progress, but as well, Glover Teixeira and Patrick Cummins.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's a very interesting fight, I feel, because when we watched Glover Teixeira against Ovince St. Preux, I thought it was St. Preux. I mean, his wrestling was really nullified in that particular fight. I think Patrick Cummins, obviously a much better wrestler than Ovince St. Preux. But nonetheless, Glover Teixeira looked so much better against Ovince St. Preux than he had in his last two. Granted, those were John Jones and Phil Davis.
Yeah.
But this is another fight for Glover Teixeira where he can, light heavyweight, it's still open for somebody to emerge out of that middle of the pack for the winner of Cormier and Gustafsson.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of people were just underestimating or forgetting about Teixeira's grappling abilities. You know, that you look at him, in the past, we've seen he slugs with guys. Maldonado, more than happy to stand and trade. Why didn't you take him down when we know that you're capable of doing that? But he understands, like his former training partner, Chuck Liddell, understood, the way you make the most money, you stop the takedowns, you use your hands and try to take out your opponent. That's the way you're going to get the most money. But he got complacent. He was training in Connecticut at his own place for the John Jones and Phil Davis fight, I believe. For his last fight, made the move, was training in Florida. So you've got to get out of your comfort zone, especially when you're at the age that Teixeira's at, and you've got to capitalize. You've got to make the most of it, and I think he'll be fine in this fight with Patrick Cummins. Stylistically, it can serve him well because Cummins is going to be looking for the takedown. Teixeira will be able to stop it and batter him standing.
This one will be the telling point of where Cummins' striking has got to, because Pat Cummins actually is shaping up to be a real legitimate 205er, but where's the striking at? Teixeira is going to test that.
All right. These two are now off to Saskatoon. You'll see lots of coverage from Saskatoon all week long, including leading into our pre-show coming up Sunday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. For Robin Black, John Ramdine, I'm John Pollock. More Fight News Now Extra is coming your way.